Speaker, on 27 October, at just 14 years old, Alicia Hussein looks into her mother's eyes and says, "I'm not going to make it." And she was right. Alicia died that day. Prior to these words from a terrified young girl to her mother, Jasmine, the story was all too common here in Victoria. I think it is essential that the words from the call are recorded in this place to ensure the focus of any government in the future is about protecting lives, saving lives and delivering at minimum the services that can make a difference. Operator, emergency police, fire or ambulance. Jasmine, ambulance. Operator, that's ambulance ringing out now. Please wait. Jasmine, thank you. She's going blue. I'll see how long it's going to take. You can hear other family members in the background. Jasmine was put on hold by the Telstra operator. And may I add here, our thoughts are with the operators from Telstra who are not at fault, but simply trying to get an answer in Victoria. They had to listen to the heartbreaking conversation as it happened. Operator, off hold. Ambulance still ringing. Jasmine, I'm going to maybe drive her. Is it going to be quicker? Operator, I would have no way of predicting that for you. I'm sorry. Jasmine, she's probably not going to make it. 2 minutes later, operator, still connecting. Jasmine, she's dying. 5 minutes later, Jasmine, I'm not even getting a pulse. Operator, still connecting to the ambulance. 10 minutes later, operator, ambulance still ringing out. 15 minutes. Jasmine finally hears the voice of an ambulance call taker as they walked into hospital. Jasmine told the operator she is not breathing properly and she's not going to make it. Jasmine made the decision to drive her to hospital, and you can hear that in the recording, and the recording that should live with every person here forever. Jasmine, breathe. Alicia, Alicia, breathe. This is because people here in Victoria are waiting minutes and not the 5 seconds that is required when people call 000. Jasmine believes if the call was answered in 5 minutes, or maybe even 10, Alicia would be alive. And 33 people have lost their lives. 33 families will still be feeling the pain of knowing that something may have been done that impacted the outcome, and that would be very difficult for each of those families to live with. A government that has overseen this showed the lack of empathy and compassion to the families instead of reaching out for them to offer them support when the Inspector General for Emergency Management report was released and offering additional care. The Premier, the Emergency Service Minister and their teams reached for the phone to call the media team to ensure the PR was right and the timing would limit the damage on the Labor Party. This report was released as over 90,000 people made their way to the biggest AFL final in Victoria in 3 years. It was a Saturday. I imagine the thinking from the Premier and his team was that there would be limited staff on the news desk. Most likely not those all over the detail. And they could release and ride the wave of footy finals over that weekend without barely a headline in the news. Wrong, so very wrong. The media rightfully called out this disgraceful behaviour. And on behalf of the families and every person in the state who deserved the truth, I will say it again. This decision to attempt to hide the truth of 33 deaths in this state makes me sick. It was an absolute disgrace. The government then continued to try to say the issues with 000 are not their fault. It is the fault of COVID. They are more interested in PR, in stunts and in spin to cover up the fact of their failings. You only need to read report after report in the Herald Sun, including when this was happening. The government opted to do a review using Graham Ashton And when that review was put forward and the details started to come out, those that were putting and having input into that report were handpicked by the senior management of Esther. Handpicked. What does that do? It covers the truth. In the Herald Sun on the 16th of March, concerns were raised about a major review into the operator of Victoria's 000 service after staff were handpicked for consultations. A government spokeswoman confirmed Esther managers were asked to nominate staff. On Monday, it was revealed Deputy Premier James Merlino, a former Emergency Service Minister, was warned about the serious staff shortages back in 2016. Yet they were handpicking staff for a report to try to make sure it would favour the government rather than reveal the truth to 33 families. The government knew about the problems. They knew about the issues in relation to funding. On the 15th of March, in the Herald Sun, there was a report about the 000 alarm raised before 12 deaths. Victoria's Deputy Premier James Merlino was warned in 2016 about the serious shortage of the state's 000 call agency, more than 5 years before an explosion of call delays was linked to the deaths of 12 people. The Age had obtained the letter, sorry, this is the Age, not the Herald Sun, the Age had obtained the letter to Mr Merlino dated December 16, in which unions told the then Emergency Services Minister that call takers at Emergency Services Telecommunication Authority, Esther, were so overworked they were unable to take proper breaks or access leave and were expected to work overtime and and that some were suffering from stress and mental health issues. In a separate development, experienced emergency call takers for Esther said they were reporting call wait times of more than a minute dating back to at least mid-2019, pre-COVID, well before the pandemic, and said numerous warnings were not acted on. Unions representing the paramedics, firefighters and emergency call takers claimed Esther had promised 48 new full-time equivalent positions during enterprise bargaining in 2015. But the pledge for the new operational roles was later withdrawn because the money was no longer available. So the government cut the funds. Unfortunately, in what is a bizarre set of circumstances at our most recent Esther Consultative Committee meeting on Tuesday the 13th of December 2016, Esther made admissions to the unions that not only were they no longer employing the 48 additional full-time positions promised, but they were no longer had the funding. This email was also sent to the Premier in 2016. Two experienced call takers said that the issue of understaffing had been regularly raised with Esther, management workers in forums for many years, regularly dismissed, and one of the workers who could not be identified because they still work at Esther said they had kept records of all call answering delays around May 2019, including waits of more than 2 minutes to reach an ambulance operators and 4 for police. At what point, we said, you're going to kill someone? This is not acceptable to blame COVID. That is disgraceful. That was call takers calling out the government for the disgraceful behaviour to try and blame COVID for their failures in the 000 system. And I know we speak a lot, Deputy Speaker, about the 000 crisis and ambulance. But we can't forget, as in the Age, on 4 September, the deaths of 4 children in a house fire in Werribee have been linked to the crisis that engulfed Victoria's 000 call agency, the true scale of which has been revealed in a damning report highlighting 33 deaths. One person waited more than 76 minutes for their call to be answered. While the report does not identify where the fire occurred or the number of fatalities involved, the Sunday Age has confirmed that it is the Werribee fire that killed 4 siblings aged 1 to 10 in November. The initial call to 000 was to police and was subject to several delays caused by a backlog of calls for Esther ambulance call dispatchers in Victoria. The caller was initially unable to get through to Telstra, service charged with directing every Australian call to police, fire or ambulance because too many of the operators were on hold trying to connect calls for the Victorian ambulances. They waited 22 seconds listening to a pre-recorded message of the delays, then waited another minute for the call to be answered for the dispatch. Following that, it took another 79 seconds for the operator of Esther was finally able to answer. For those that understand fires, a fire in a current modern house, when ignited, Within 4 minutes, Deputy Speaker, in about the time that I've got left in this speech, if a fire ignited in a home, that room where the ignition point started would probably be destroyed. So in that time, that's how long it took for that call to eventually get through. Then you add on, it takes 10 minutes for the fire department to get there. That's enough for a house to go. 4 children died in that, and the government's interest was PR and trying to hide this report so they didn't have to face the damning questions. There was doubts cast on Dan's excuse in the ambulance row, with Victoria's Inspector General for Emergency Management poured cold water over the findings that they didn't need to release it on that Saturday, when the Premier came out stating that it was still getting worked on. Mr Pearce said there was 1 digit that had to be changed. Simply 1 digit. We know this is a big issue. We know this has been a major concern for all Victoria, and that is why we are very proud on this side that we will commit to fixing the 000 crisis. We will make sure that there is a proper and effective backup system at 000 so we never return to pen and paper that happened during COVID. When the system failed, pen and paper was being used for ambulance call takers, not good enough. We will then ensure that the system available with the dispatch system is upgraded so it is a modern system. The current government, Deputy Speaker, have stopped and withdrawn the funding on that upgrade at the moment. They have withdrawn that from 000 at the same time there is a crisis in this state. How could a government in their right mind withdraw the funding for upgrade the system after every report that's come out? It's bewildering. There's another major issue that was identified in this report. Only 16% of call takers are cross-trained. They work in silos. This is not the fault of call takers. This is the fault of policy by government that doesn't have the courage to go in there and say, we need to invest in training these staff so they are in the best position to take calls within that 5 seconds required, and we will train up to 50% so they can move where the surge is at the time, whether it's a Black Saturday event, a thunderstorm asthma, a Burke Street tragedy. Wherever those call takers are needed, we will make sure they are trained and they can move too. And as part of that $125 million, we'll ensure that we have recurrent funding for 000, because report after report after report has said that is one of the major issues. And even this week, Stephen Lean has come out and said that whilst he says the funding is okay at the moment, that is exactly where the problem lies. You can't continue to have a system where the CEO is coming out and saying the funding is okay at the moment. How does a government, how does Esther plan for surge through our state? As we close this parliament and we go to an election, Victorians will have a clear choice when it comes to 000. A government that's ignored reports in 2015, a government that ignored reports in 2016, a government that ignored a call for $1 million extra in 2020, a government that cut call-taking staff in 2021, a government that promised 48 new staff, then withdrew the funding, a government that has withdrawn the funding to upgrade the computer-assisted dispatch system to bring it into the 21st century. Or you can elect the Liberal Nationals to go into government to deliver on our commitments and ensure that we bring Esther, 000, and treat it as a genuine emergency service here in Victoria, that we work with every call taker to get the advice and information from them, directly from them, not hand-picked ones. We'll meet with the ones that are on the ground taking those calls, that are feeling the pressure and the stress. We will deliver a world-class 000 system that Victoria deserves. Only Victoria has an average of above 100 seconds during the full COVID period. Only Victoria cut staff. Only Victoria had 33 people die because of failings at 000. Every other state managed to cope. There's only one thing that Victoria has that those other states don't, and that is a Dan Andrews-led Labor government, and we need to change this election.